Okay, here we are. We're ready to go. Getting started just a little bit early today. Hello. Welcome to the stream. If we have anyone so far, welcome to anybody watching the archive version of this later on. This is basically a continuation of something that I tried out for pretty much the first time. I think it was last weekend. I'd have to double check, but in my last stream, we did a thing where we went over some recent animation news, and we also dipped into general entertainment industry news as well. And I just kind of like the idea. I've seen plenty of other channels that specialize in other types of media, specifically channels that specialize in like video game industry stuff. And there are whole channels, there are creators who dedicate their whole existence on YouTube to just doing the news and just kind of reading you parts of the internet and then sharing a little bit of commentary along the way. And as far as I know, there isn't a ton of similar stuff here for animation. I don't tend to see a lot of it anyway, if it does exist. So, at least for the moment, I think this is kind of a fun idea. I also just happen to enjoy looking at animation news in general. It's something that kind of forces me to stay somewhat up to date, what's going on in the industry, learning more about the dynamics of the industry, upcoming releases, things like that. So relatively shortly, we will be moving on to the actual news, the new news of the week. But before we get to that, I just want to get the stream started, hang out for a little bit, chat with some folks as people come in. And also, while we're doing that, I can roll through this article here, which is not necessarily news, but still very useful. It's just like a running list of new animated series in 2022. Obviously, we've had quite a few of these released already, but this is a great resource. This is something that I wish I'd known about previously. Here on Cartoon Brew, a lot of the articles today are coming from Cartoon Brew specifically. So thank you to them for their reporting and putting everything out here on the internet. I really, really appreciate that. And it's turning out to be a great resource. Purple says, hi. How's it going, Purple? Thank you so much for coming back to the stream. Purple asks, did you see the new show from Phineas and Ferb creators? Well, if I have, I'm not aware of it being from the same creators. But if you give me a title, I can take a quick look. In fact, we've seen a lot of new stuff come out. I feel like with just in a couple weeks, or maybe we've just seen a lot of announcements. Maybe this is just a result of me actively looking at animation news. But what the Paradise PD guys have a new series up on Netflix. I don't want to spoil some of the other headlines that we're going to get into here, but a similar situation elsewhere where it's like, oh, producers or creators of X also have this new thing coming out like now or very, very soon. So apparently it's a lot more than I was aware of. But yeah, let me know about the title of that one. And in the meantime, I'm going to peruse this list here. Look at this one. Smiling Friends. Has anyone heard of that show? That released this year back in January. I'm glad. I guess, is it roughly chronological? It's called Hamster and Gretel. I do not think I have heard of Hamster and Gretel. So I'm going to look it up in my other research window that I have open here. That's not on screen, but it'll work fine for me. Okay, Hamster and Gretel, comedy, 2022. Oh, upcoming. It airs August 12th, is that right? American animated television program created by Dan Povenmire for the Disney Channel. Okay, cool. Sorry, I'm trying to keep hydrated here so I don't sound bad on mic. Purple says the main characters are drawn in a different style than the background characters, so I think it looks kind of weird. Well, let me check out some of the images here on the Google search results. My first instinct or reaction was Word Girl, maybe just because we have a girl in a mask who looks like she has superpowers. Word Girl's pretty good, by the way, isn't it? Okay, Hamster and Gretel. Yeah, so I was never a huge Phineas and Ferb guy. I think it just hit a little too late. I was a little too old, by the time that one rolled around. Still seems very fun, and obviously it's had a pretty good amount of staying power, you could say. But that's cool. Okay, so another thing from Disney television animation. That's neat. Is this something that came out of Comic-Con? Or had we already known about it before then? Because I know, isn't Comic-Con like right now? Like right this very minute? I have a nice beverage here that is supposedly like orange creamsicle flavored. And it's actually pretty good. So I'm going to keep drinking that. So yeah, I'm not getting a huge sense of the art direction overall because most of the stuff that comes up on Google Images is just like a couple snips of character art, not much else. But yeah, I don't know, the character designs that I'm seeing so far, I guess for this main character, I assume is Gretel. Not like hugely enthusiastic about the look. Very, very simple. Very flat colors. That's kind of par for the course for, television animation. But, okay. What's the premise of this one? Is there like an elevator pitch? She has a hamster, and does the hamster also have superpowers or something like that? I don't know. But now I am curious, and this was not on my radar. Again, going back to this list, like, I just need to keep tabs on lists like this that just kind of give you, a much better idea of what to look out for. Oh, let me know if that music's too loud. No, we're okay. Oh, we have so much stuff here. Wow, even just for Funimation here. Purple says, what shows were impactful to your childhood? Well, I don't think my list is all that different from... Oh, is that everything? Wow. Oh, just a lot of these don't have release dates, so it's stuff that released in January. Never mind, maybe this isn't the best resource in the world, but it does give us an idea. I'll look at some of these TBDs in just a moment. Purple says, I would say SpongeBob or something of the 2000s era. I mean, yeah, that's... I was growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, so... a lot of that, a lot of what is now considered somewhat classic Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network shows. So SpongeBob, absolutely. Real Monsters, definitely. Rugrats, of course. Ren and Stimpy, Cow and Chicken, which I think just had an anniversary recently. A lot of that stuff. Fairly Odd Parents, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Ed, Edd and Eddy. All that stuff, which is still stuck around quite a bit. Maybe because people around my age don't want to let go, or maybe it's finding a new audience over time. Maybe it's sort of renewing itself. But very quickly, let's just take a look at any of these things here that seem to stand out. Didn't know that there was yet another Angry Birds project that apparently came out earlier this year. But look at all these with TBDs. That's not super helpful. But then again, maybe this hasn't been... Yeah, apparently this hasn't been updated since January, so that makes sense. Okay, well, you know what? Let's go ahead and dip into some... Sorry, I'll move the chat up a little bit like this too. Let's dip into some of the headlines that I pulled up here. So, not exactly... Oh, this is another list, sorry. But it does tip off one of the things that I wanted to talk about, which is that Mel Brooks comedy movie. What's the title? I even forgot the title. It is called... No, not Minions. Also, look at this. Puss in Boots release date was pushed back. I thought it was coming out in July. Apparently, the release date was announced for September. It is now announced for December. So it got pushed at some point. That was a thing. We're getting more Spider-Verse. That is just plain exciting, given the pedigree of Spider-Verse, I would say. This is one Strange World that I was not even aware of until I was in the movie theater for the Bob's Burgers movie. I actually watched the Bob's Burgers movie in theaters. That's the last thing I saw in theaters for a long time. And this came up, and I was like, okay, never heard of it. It seems somewhat original. I'm sure it's based on something or other. But yeah, it just looks like wacky, colorful sci-fi. I shouldn't say wacky because it doesn't seem overly comedic, but just weird, inventive landscapes and creatures and such. And it's a Disney movie, which is not what they always deliver, I would say, in terms of just Walt Disney Animated Pictures as opposed to Pixar. So kind of looking forward to this one. What is the release date for this one? November 23rd. Okay, so a Thanksgiving movie, more or less. Purple says, I didn't even know that a Puss in Boots movie was coming out. Oh, yeah, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. My goodness, how many videos have I made about it at this point? Maybe just like 2. I've talked about it certainly a good number of times, just because I'm really excited about it, based purely on the visuals that we've been shown so far. I think we've had 1 or 2 trailers at this point. And yeah, it looks fantastic. I don't have a huge amount of interest in the other Puss in Boots. Well, I guess there's just the one movie, and then they did a show that I've never watched. The first movie was fine. But yeah, The Last Wish apparently got pushed to December, so all of a sudden it's a holiday movie. I was really looking forward to seeing that movie basically as soon as possible, but whatever, they need to push it, so they pushed it. So that's that. Anyway, so let's get on to some of the actual headlines here. So this is kind of a big one. This is a more serious industry one, but Karen, I'm going to say Tolliver, promoted to Netflix head of animation film as Melissa Cobb shifts to producer role. So for one thing, I didn't even really know that Netflix had an internal animation department or I guess it's an administrative thing. I'm not quite sure. But I just assumed they were constantly working with, third-party production companies, and maybe that's still the case, but there is indeed, and has been already, someone in charge specifically of just Netflix's animation efforts, I guess. And this person, Karen Tolliver, is in now. Melissa Cobb, whoever that is not gone. She hasn't been ousted or anything, but she is now in a completely different role. So that is that. Here's some more information here. Cobb joined Netflix as head of kids and family in September 2017, and apparently led the charge in building their animation studio. So do they have their own studio that they have just bought out? Anyway. So Karen Tolliver is now in charge. Let's see if they give us any more details on what this actually translates to, what this actually means for the company. Also, Purple says, I think Avatar 2 comes out in December. Yeah. They're definitely aiming for a holiday release on that one. The trailer, for which I have watched at least a few times, and it's very funny because the trailer's not that funny, I guess, except in concept. But I keep joking with people who are, oh yeah, it's coming out, and I'll just be like, no, I don't think it is. I haven't heard of it at all. But no, I'm not excited about Avatar 2, except for the fact that I kind of hope it bombs, just because it's been such a long wait. I don't know. It'll probably do okay, just because people are curious, I think, at this point. Also, I still think there's a relatively strong appetite out there among moviegoers, especially people going to the actual physical movie theaters, for a big blockbuster-style movie. For quite a few years now, the big blockbuster movies have shifted towards the holiday season as opposed to the summer slot. So it makes sense that Avatar is aiming for that release window. But yeah, I'm not super enthusiastic. Is that the word? I'm not super interested to actually see the movie. I don't expect much from it at all. So that's that. That's what's going on there. So anyway, do we have it? So, okay, there's apparently been a pretty significant change in Netflix leadership in general, which is not super surprising given the hard to ignore flood of news coming out about the company and just surrounding the company. We know the investors aren't happy. We know they've lost a bunch of value to the brand as a whole. We know that they've been canceling projects, specifically animation projects. And again, surprised to hear that they even just have a specialized animation studio within the company, or just like leadership specialized in animated programming. So kind of neat to hear that, and you have to wonder whether this actually signals some kind of major change for Netflix's programming decisions in the animation department. I don't really think that's what will happen necessarily. And I also think that just change of leadership stuff, especially in this kind of scenario, the real goal, the real purpose of these changes is to assure shareholders and to assure the wider audience and subscriber base that, like, oh, we're working on stuff. We have, resources. We're putting effort into this thing. We're not giving up, all that kind of thing. So maybe this is just part of that general leadership shift and trying to send a signal. It's almost a PR thing in a certain sense. But there you go. Do we have any other pertinent details shared here? Yeah, the studio's recent struggles and high-profile cancellations have been well documented. Its original animation titles are often outperformed by low-budget acquisitions, and it now looks as though Netflix is planning to move in another direction. Okay, not sure what direction exactly. Taylor Hill built up a studio's feature animation creative team and oversaw its animated film slate for the past several years. Oh. Okay, including productions such as the Oscar-nominated Klaus, I love very much, and the streamer's current most popular film, The Sea Beast, which I don't really like at all. Okay, VP of Animation Production Operations, Bruce Deitch, will leave Netflix as his role has been made redundant. Oh, okay, so there is a removal. Someone did get ousted. He will, however, stick around for the next few months to help with the transition period. I'm sure that'll be fun for him. Okay, series animation at Netflix is not changing, and John Dardarian will continue as VP Animation Series. Okay, so that's most of the piece right there. That's the general idea. There aren't a ton of details to share on this one, I suppose. But it's certainly interesting in a general sense. I think just Netflix as a whole has been the go-to subject for speculation and discussion, I guess, not just for the animation community recently, but just people who like talking about entertainment and sort of the landscape of entertainment. As I've said quite a few times at this point, it would be a very big deal if Netflix ceased to be a major force within the streaming entertainment landscape. That would be a huge shift, and I think it would even have a sort of power vacuum that the other, major competing entertainment streaming services backed by major networks and studios and things would just jump on, and it would be hungry hippos until every valuable property was snatched up by someone or other. So we shall see. We shall see what happens with the Netflix animated slate. Obviously, if the change in leadership is still ongoing, how soon will it be before we actually see the results of the change in leadership? It could be a few months, could be another year from now before we really get a sense of this supposed new direction that will result from this change. But yeah, that's one of the big headlines for sure. A lot of sites have been talking about this one lately. Makes perfect sense. Again, I feel like we all have at least some kind of vested interest in Netflix, even if it's not necessarily a financial interest in the form of company shares that we happen to own. So that's that one. Okay, cool. We can take a nice breather for a second. And I also wanted to say a little bit more about Avatar 2. Because the first Avatar movie, obviously, and you could argue it was the driving force behind that movie's success, was visual effects and CG. I mean, kind of one and the same in the case of that movie, but you get what I'm saying. It was a visual environment that was just so interesting and new to so many people. Of course, it also had the giant, IMAX push, was it also shown in 3D? I feel like it was. I feel like there were 3D showings of Avatar as well. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But anyway, that was such a big deal, and I think you can still argue that Avatar, that first movie, holds up pretty well in terms of visuals and art direction, I guess. I never really cared for the look of that movie. I don't think that it's especially compelling or interesting or creative, but it is creative. Like, I get it, and I know that they spent a ton of movie just on developing, like, the lore and the world of the movie. And I'm sure that there were just some extremely skilled and talented people working on the visuals for that movie and the art direction. It never really appealed to me. It doesn't even necessarily feel that foreign outside of a couple of major traits, like, oh, we got the floating islands. The plant life and the animals are different. They are alien things that are just combinations of, like, real world Earth stuff. But beyond that, I don't really care that much about it. And seeing the trailer for Avatar 2, for one thing, it doesn't necessarily have that edge anymore. I'm sure it's a very big budget movie. I'm sure they spent massive amounts on the CG for this sequel. But is it going to be enough? And are we in a place culturally? Are we in a place in this particular moment of entertainment history where people can even be wowed by this kind of stuff anymore? Are we at a point where people care? Like, oh, we're seeing a big alien landscape with incredible special effects and visuals, but it is ultimately the same alien landscape that everybody was so wowed by, over 10 years ago? 13 years ago at this point? It doesn't have that edge, in my opinion, the sequel, and I feel like that could be a major downside. So, anyway, that's my little Avatar rant. I don't think I'll be making any kind of videos about Avatar 2, but there it is. Before we move on here, how's everybody doing? Are we doing okay? Doing all right, Purple? Has it been an okay week? A very busy week for me. Lots going on. I had that video go up yesterday, but there's a much longer video that I've been working on lately that I hope to have up. Who knows? Maybe through the weekend, maybe early next week. So that's going on. Yeah, but it's been interesting. And out here in California, yeah, like a lot of places, it's been very hot lately, which has been fun to deal with. But we're doing it. We're here. Cut through the week. And yeah, it felt like this was a good way to start off the weekend, at least for me. Okay. What do we got next? Aha! Here we are. Another Netflix-related headline. Netflix is acquiring the animation studio that handled the Lego Movie. Okay, based in Australia, not something I was aware of. I was not even aware of the name of the studio, which is Animal Logic. Oh, this is an interesting little breakdown. It's basically just going up, some frequently asked questions, some FAQs on the subject. Why did Netflix do this? According to a Netflix release, the acquisition will support Netflix's ambitious animated film slate. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. They've had trouble. Powerful competitors. Disney. We're talking about Disney, mostly. A top-tier CG studio could be a means to that end. Okay, and they claim here that Animal Logic is one of the industry's leading independent animation studios. Well, formerly independent, right? Sorry, not independent anymore. They were based in Sydney. That's kind of neat. I didn't include them in my Australian animation video, but there you have it. Okay. They also have some offices in California. Cool. They've worked on stuff like Lego Movie, Matrix Resurrections, Happy Feet. Oh, yeah, I remember Happy Feet. DC League of Super Pets, which is coming out. Oh, I don't know if that's the best credit to mention when promoting this studio, because that movie doesn't look especially visually compelling, although that can be due to a whole bunch of different stuff, can it? Okay, already producing some stuff for Netflix, so there's that. Okay, so here's a good breakdown. Apparently, that animation hire we were just talking about in that last headline, apparently it is indicative of a large push into animation. They want to do a bunch of new animation production. So let's read through this real quick. In May, Netflix signed a multi-year services renewal with Oscar-winning VFX and animation company DNEG, which will see the streamer spend at least $350 million with the company through 2025. My goodness. Well, actually, when you think about it, these will be smaller projects, won't they? Because 350 million, that's roughly the budget of what, like, a Marvel movie before we get into marketing territory, or close to the budget of like a Pixar or Disney movie, right? Purple says, also, did you get contacts? No, I just took my glasses off because there was a glare and I can read the screen just fine. But thanks for asking, I guess. So here we are. Netflix bought an animation studio and they're going to spend quite a big chunk of change with this company specifically, supposedly or presumably on many different projects. Okay, in-house, there's still a bit of a gray cloud hanging over Netflix Animation after the company announced that it was eliminating 70 positions at the LA Animation Studio in May. Did they mention that in the last article? Did I skip over it? That is a significant news story on its own, isn't it? Okay. Ryan says, sadly, no news about the Scott Pilgrim anime. Oh, no. I know we've been holding out for that one. That's not one of the things that they've canceled, right? I feel like we would have heard about it if Netflix went out and canceled that project because so many people are looking forward to it. But yeah, outside of those cancellations we've heard about somewhat recently, apparently Netflix is spending a bunch of dough, and they plan to spend a lot more dough, which has been their business model since the beginning, I guess. It's just deficit spending, right? Just trying to keep up with the competition. Okay, although the streamer did tell us that none of those affected were full-time Netflix employees. Oh, well, then it's fine, I guess. Of course, the list of Netflix original animated titles which have been dropped or canceled over the past year is well documented. Yes, something mentioned in the last article as well. Just been canceling a bunch of stuff, period. Cutting back on spending, or maybe they just felt that those canceled projects weren't going to align with their more recent goals for their, what do we say, their streaming service. Is there a philosophy shift here? Is this something to be worried about in terms of like creative direction behind a lot of these projects? Okay, so they haven't even mentioned the purchase price of Animal Logic, so there's that. Here's a quote from VP of Studio Operations. Netflix has been investing in animation over the past few years, and this furthers our commitment to building a world-class animation studio. Okay, so they really want something in-house. Got it. Animal Logic is a leading animation studio with innovative technology that will strengthen our existing business and increase our long-term capacity in the animation space so we can better entertain our members around the world. Okay, so just kind of corpo speak. Not the most interesting comment. They're basically saying, it's good. It's good. We're doing this because it's good and it'll help us be better. Okay, thanks very much. But yeah, I don't know if we could get a peek at the animation slate over at Netflix. Wow, wouldn't that be fascinating? Maybe they'll announce something. Maybe they'll be somewhat, what do we say, just like transparent with their plans in the near future. I think that would be a very interesting move and would be yet another thing that potentially reassures people who, either are invested in the company or who don't want to feel like the streaming service is heading down the tubes. Just an impression. Ryan says it's still going, or it's still go since the books are for it's so good. Maybe it's so good since the books are for teens and young adults, and they are mostly cutting kids animation. I see. Okay, so just saying more adult animation. I guess anything that people don't consider explicitly for kids just gets lumped into adult animation, even though there is probably realistically a space in between, right? But that's an interesting point. And yeah, now that I'm thinking about some of the canceled projects, yeah, I could say, I could see that a lot of those fit closer into the category of children's animation, or family animation, something like that. So makes sense. Purple says, when you started to stream, was it weird to talk to yourself when no one watched? I mean, it is. It is in a way. just because of the format of a stream if there's nobody there, but at the same time, people do end up watching the archive version in okay numbers, I guess, similar to a lot of my videos in general. And even now, the streams aren't huge, obviously. So, no, I mean, if it was awful, I would probably just stop doing it. But no, it's fine, honestly. In fact, for some of the streams, I don't know, I kind of enjoy just being able to go through a consistent train of thought, right? You can just focus on what you're saying as opposed to bouncing a bunch of different things around. But anyway, always better to have people involved. And thankfully, I think we pretty much always had at least a couple people around. So it's never been a total dead zone. Anyway, that's that. Ryan also says My Hero Season 6 is coming in October. Oh, okay. Interesting. So are they really only on Season 6 total? Or is that one of those shows where they've, had a bunch of, like, spin-offs or shows with slightly different titles and different story arcs and stuff? Or is that just the main show? Because for some reason, in my head, My Hero is just this thing that's been running forever, but I don't think that's really the case. It's certainly not something like One Piece, right, where there's just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of episodes. But that's cool. There you go. Upcoming release that I don't even remember being on that list we looked at earlier. So there's that. Okay. But anyway, I think that's probably about it for this sort of animation. Not animation. Netflix is trying to invest more in animation, apparently. And part of that effort involves just buying up this studio. Buying up a formerly independent studio that had done some really great work. So there it is. All right, now we can move on to the next one. Purple says, I stopped watching My Hero around Season 4. I think I've only ever personally gotten around Season 2-ish, I think. Or maybe Season 1 is just really long. And I feel like I got into Season 2. But I've really enjoyed that show quite a bit. So I should get back to it. I forget where that one is. I think it might be on Hulu currently. We'll see. Anyway. Ryan says Season 6, 6 seasons in total, but there are spin-off manga and light novels. Okay, I mean, that makes sense. It probably started out as a manga, too, I would assume. That's just the case for so many shows that get turned into anime. But, okay. Dr. Season 3 is coming early next year, so I'm happy. What is Dr. Season? Is it supposed to be something else that I'm just blanking on what it could be? Feel free to elaborate. Anyway, next up, MPC. This is sort of a on like working conditions within the animation industry, so it's a bit more businessy, but I still think very important to talk about. MPC London, which is a VFX and animation studio, scraps 2022 raises, introduces color-coded alert system for troubled projects. So Ryan clarifies Dr. Stone Season 3, my bad. Okay. That is not one that I've watched, so I might have to put that on my like running list of things to look into. Anyway, this is very funny. I might read quite a bit of this just because it's very, very funny to me. And also this like color-coded thing is so I can't see it being a very positive thing. I'll say that. But let's get some reporting from Jamie Lang. Thank you, Jamie, for putting this out here for us. Okay. So, leading global VFX and animation studio, MPC Film, owned by Technicolor, wow, okay, hosted a town hall meeting last Thursday in which MPC President Tom Williams announced some unpopular changes to pay structure and work from home conditions. Yeah, that's tied into the color-coded thing. We'll get to that in a second. Okay. So, it's a big VFX and animation company. A lot of studios that handle animation also handle VFX at this point because of the CG stuff. A lot of VFX are just CG animation. And they handled Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, which I thought was A-okay. Nope. Okay, sure. I haven't seen that yet. Is that even out yet? Sonic 2, which I hated. And Disney's Pinocchio. Oh, remember that? Yeah. Okay, so they're cutting back, basically. They're saying no raises. No. And it's one of many businesses that's, like, struggling to navigate a future of work that's like sometimes hybrid, sometimes remote, sometimes in office, and all that kind of stuff. So basically, they're calling this the RAG system, and even that, I get that it's based on the color names, but what a terrible name. Okay, color-coded program that dictates how many days per week employees must spend in the office. The colors are based on the status of the project that a given employee is working on. Red, the project has serious issues. I will need to join my team in studio full-time to get it back on track. So just all in office, no hybrid or remote options whatsoever. If someone deems that the project is in serious trouble, we'll see if they provide details on who decides how well or not well a project is doing. Amber, the project has some issues. Okay, so middle ground. And that works with minimum 4 days a week in studio, so not a huge cutback from 5 days a week. And then green, everything's basically okay. Minimum of 3 days per week in studio. Okay, so no full remote work. Whatever, that's their decision. It's a decision I tend to disagree with, especially if employees are capable of handling this kind of stuff. Regardless of where they happen to be working at the time. But okay, this is what they're going with. And there's this infographic. Is this something that's officially... I don't know if this is official company materials or not, but here this basically explains the structure we just talked about. Kind of strange. And then just some stuff you just can't do hybrid at all. So there's that. And then you can try to ask for special permissions and stuff. Reactions have been mostly negative at a time when inflation and costs of living are skyrocketing. Not getting a raise is viewed by many as tantamount to a pay cut. Okay, so that's just the pay side of things. In the poster, they don't need that amber and green status, as every project there is red tag. Ooh. Okay, so there you go. We don't need to go too deep into this, but apparently they have a reputation of having some trouble internally and just getting projects done and all that kind of stuff. This is clearly an attempt to right the ship. I don't think it's the right choice in that area at all. And I'll leave this up for a moment while I catch up on chat, because Ryan here was telling us about Dr. Stone, that it's about the whole world getting turned to stone for 3 billion years. And then Senku, the MC, has to bring all 7 billion people back and rebuild the world. Okay, that's an interesting premise. Is this anime? Is this a Western show? I haven't looked it up yet, so I'm not sure about those details. Purple says, I just realized that we're 80 away from 1K channel subscribers is what he's referring to. Yeah, we're getting there. At no point has there ever been like an acceleration of subscribers. It's just like a very slow drip of new subscribers, which I very much appreciate. Don't you get me wrong on that one. But yeah, it does make me a little anxious of like, I don't know, 1K is like such a basic goal for a lot of channels. Plenty of channels get there rather quickly. So I'm very much looking forward to it. I'll say that. It's a positive in general that we've gotten close. I really appreciate that. I've been working hard on the channel for over 2 years at this point. As for plans of what to do at 1K, I don't know. I think it would be fun in general to do some kind of stream or maybe just a quick thank you video or something like that would be nice, you know. But honestly, more than anything, I'm pretty interested to see if hitting 1K changes anything for the channel in terms of how YouTube promotes it or doesn't promote it, because that's technically the threshold where you start to be eligible for monetization. And when a channel is monetized, that's when YouTube has an incentive to promote the channel in any way. Because if you're not monetized, there's no benefit to YouTube. So it'll be interesting to see. Maybe things won't change much at all. Maybe it'll be basically exactly the same, and we'll get relatively low numbers on most of our stuff. But whatever, that wouldn't exactly be a shock at this point. I've been dealing with that for a long time. So, but yeah, exciting. Looking forward to it. And gosh, if there's anybody out there you haven't already told about the channel who you think would be into it, please feel free to let them know. And yeah, looking forward to seeing what happens next. So that's that. But anyway, yeah, so that's this nonsense from NPC London. I guess we'll find out how this turns out for the studio. And I also really appreciate stories like this in general, because there's never, I feel in general, at least from where I'm standing, I don't hear about working conditions within animation. I hear about working conditions in, like, I don't know, certain parts of the entertainment industry a decent amount. That thing came up recently with the VFX of Thor, Love and Thunder. I looked into a little bit of the working conditions over at Illumination Entertainment a couple years back. I hear a lot about working conditions in the video game industry. That's a major topic of conversation and has been for a good few years now. But I hear very little about what's happening in animation and what it's actually like to work for a major animation studio. And I have a feeling part of that is because, well, for one thing, maybe they have really strong NDAs that everybody has to sign, and you can basically say nothing to the public without getting in really big trouble. Or similarly, maybe there's a sort of just informal blacklisting thing, which we've absolutely seen in the video game industry for developers, is that if you tell tales out of school and it makes a studio look bad, you just won't get hired by anybody. You'll just kind of be informally blacklisted, and you can't work and you can't earn money. So yeah, not great. Not great there. I'm wondering what things are like in animation. Maybe it's nowhere near as bad as that, but I'm very curious. And things like this, reporting like this, I really, really appreciate. It just gives us a tiny little glimpse into some of the weirdness and the expectations. So, I don't know. So I'm hoping to see more reporting like this in the near future, and to learn more about what it's actually like to work in animation. So there's that. What's next? Oh, excuse me. This is pretty good beverage, though. Dream Vision. Yeah, it's not bad. Where are they based? I will look later. Purple says, you don't make money from YouTube yet? Nope. I have never made a cent from YouTube. I have never made a cent or a dime from anything on YouTube. The Patreon stuff, that's the only money I've ever made from the channel. I'm very happy to have the Patreon. I'm very appreciative of the folks who support on Patreon, but that's it. And that'll probably stay basically the same for the foreseeable future. Like, even if there is monetization, if we make the cut at some point in YouTube's eyes, I would maybe be willing to try it in a very limited degree, like just a very low amount of the ads, if any, just to see how it changes things at all. But I certainly wouldn't be earning very much from ads on YouTube anyway, just given the view counts and stuff like that. I also don't like to inflict ads on people. I don't like that idea very much at all, especially given my own experiences with watching many hours of YouTube a day, and having to put up with the ads is just, it's only become worse. So we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. But no, yeah, I don't make any money from YouTube whatsoever. Okay, here's a much more fun story. Question mark. It is a potentially fun story. Good old Craig Mccracken. We know who that is rebooting the Powerpuff Girls and Foster's Home for for Imaginary Friends. That's the Dream Vision kicking up. So, Craig Mccracken, yeah, creator credits on a bunch of, what are now considered classic, like, Cartoon Network shows. He was also the creator behind Kid Cosmic, the Netflix original animated series that came and went very quickly. They turned out 3 seasons, or released 3 seasons in about a year? Basically a year, exactly. I certainly grew up having a great time with Powerpuff Girls, probably more so Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, although I feel like it was never on. I always wanted to watch it, but I very rarely caught it when it was airing. And I hate the character of Blue. But other than that, I really like Foster's. Okay, so let's get into it. Also, isn't this a bit strange? Whatever happened to that live action Powerpuff Girls thing? Remember that? And everybody was seeing early clips from it or something, or behind the scenes stuff, and just thought it was going to be really terrible? Is that still happening? That seems like forever ago. Okay, Hanna-Barbera Studios Europe has started development on reboots of classic Cartoon Network series Powerpuff Girls and Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. With Craig McCracken, he's developing both, so he's not necessarily going to be running these shows, but he is involved creatively, especially at the initial stage. Okay, Powerpuff Girls reboot will expand on the original series with Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup, set to go head-to-head with franchise favorite villains, as well as new threats. Okay, so that tells us basically nothing. Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends will be reimagined as a preschool animated series with a new cast of preschool-aged imaginary friends. The original series, for kids a bit older, ran for 6 seasons on Cartoon Network and won 6 Emmys of its own. That's a twist. Yeah, that's something different. So, wow, yeah, we can definitely share some commentary on that one. Did you guys grow up with these ones, by the way, or watch them later on or anything like that? As I said, between the two, Foster's was probably more interesting to me, although I probably watched more of Powerpuff Girls. But both very fun shows, a really fun, light tone, of course. And as it points out here, especially Foster's, felt like it was for slightly older kids. I'll say in the realm of, like, I don't know, 8 to 12 years old. Somewhere like that. There are always outliers. There are always people outside of that age range that, get really into a show. But that was the general demographic. At least that's my impression of it. And they're essentially doing Muppet Babies for Foster's. I'm really not sure about that. I'm really not sure about that decision. For one thing, does it say... Okay, well, it is going to be on Cartoon Network. Okay. Do you think they'll go streaming exclusive? Probably not, right? The Hanna-Barbera Homecoming of Craig was an opportunity we could not pass up. Along with his unparalleled sense of fun and imagination, he's bringing 2 of his greatest works, and we are so excited for these characters to be part of the new legacy taking shape at the studio. Oh my goodness. Okay, so they will almost definitely be on Cartoon Network on actual television. So that's that. And yeah, no real tips on Powerpuff Girls at all, but Foster's is going to be for very young children. But then, okay, because in my mind, the reason that so many, not just animated properties, but properties in general that have any amount of name recognition, these are brands and names that people already know very well. I always assumed that those get the green light for any number of reboots and remakes, etc., specifically because of that name recognition, right? I'm not crazy. Like, that seems pretty basic, right? It has the name. People recognize it. Okay. But here, the people who know about these shows, specifically the people who grew up with these shows, are roughly my age, if not a little bit older. Why not aim for them? I don't know. Maybe it just comes from this assumption that adults don't watch animation. Maybe it comes from the assumption that people around my age, as parents, for example, would feel compelled to put on these shows for their children. And it's not that I doubt the ability of, the studio, this team, whatever, to deliver shows that can potentially appeal to any given age demographic or audience. I'm sure it'll be a-okay. I'm sure the characters will be very cute for the Foster's reboot. Makes sense to me. But beyond that, oh my goodness, this easily could have been, I don't know, didn't they learn this from, like, Adventure Time and Steven Universe and a number of other programs that, like, yes, adults do watch cartoons and animation in general, and you're not just looking at a child audience. Adult-friendly animation is a thing. I don't know, but that seems like a very strange decision for me, and I'll probably stop ranting about it at this point. But that's certainly a wrinkle. Any comments here? It seems like it's next to impossible for studios to trust even iconic creators with anything that's not a reboot these days. Well, I mean, Craig Mccracken did just have an original series on Netflix. So... Oh, there's some discourse, so I don't want to get into that. But anyway, interesting and a little bit confounding. But that's that. That's that one. Now for a bit of lighter fare that could have turned into a video for me, but I can't be bothered to actually go and see the movie. Here it is. Paws of Fury is not doing well. Paws of Fury is not having a good time. That's the long and short of this one. The full title is Paws of Fury, The Legend of Hank. I constantly forget that title because I don't find it memorable in the least. And I also did not know that this is apparently an animated feature for children that is very closely mirroring the Mel Brooks classic Blazing Saddles. And Mel Brooks himself, who's like 96, mid-90s or something, has a voice part in the movie for some reason. I guess as homage or a way of implying that the movie has some kind of pedigree, I suppose. And here's the tip-off. It was originally titled Blazing Samurai, which is much more blatant about its influences. It's not doing well, basically. Critics have checked out the movie, shared some initial reviews and such, and people are not into it. That's the general message here. But more specifically than that, some people just think, no, it's not delivering anything really on the entertainment level. And other people are saying that it's like actively offensive in terms of like stereotypes and things. None of that's good. None of that is good news for anybody involved with this one. Although, as reporter here, Amidi, I hope that's somewhere near correct, points out here, the studio picked up rights to the film for a fire sale price of $10 million, which apparently had production costs in the neighborhood of $45 to $50 million, which, as we know, is already pretty much on the low end of animation features. We could even say it's kind of a low-budget animated feature. Illumination Pictures, which is very famous for spending as little money on their projects as possible, I think those budgets tend to be in the neighborhood of like $60 to $80 million. And on top of that, they spend a whole bunch of money on marketing. In fact, the first Minions movie is famous specifically for that reason, where they spent like more than double the production budget on marketing for that movie. I think it's somewhere around there. So this one spent about $50 million to make. I guess they didn't have a way to release it. They couldn't get in touch with a distributor or something. Very strange. It's from a place called Arc Productions. Oh, they went bankrupt. That'll do it. That'll do it. They just needed to get rid of some assets and stuff. Sold it for $10 million. Oof. Okay, so it's a theatrical release. There has been some amount of marketing for this movie. I've seen billboards. I've seen trailers around. That's something. They've spent some kind of money on it. And it's bombing horribly. Purple says, isn't that a fake version of the Karate Panda? So like the Kung Fu Panda movies, basically. Or at least it has that vibe. Just, you know, setting and premise and everything. And also just master-apprentice dynamic, you know. But again, it mirrors Blazing Saddles for some reason. I don't know why. I don't understand that choice. And I just want to quickly read off some of the critic excerpts here because they're pretty funny. Okay, so this is from Variety. Paws of Fury is an efficient yet under-imagined animated fable that barely musters the flavor of a cliche Western comedy. There you go. Who's this one from? This is from the AV Club. Of the 8 companies and about 300 cast and crew members involved, oh wow, it's clear that not enough red flags were raised, if any, about the thoughtlessness of this production and its portrayals. Whether or not its predecessor holds up, fully or even in part, I would say the Blazing Saddles still holds up a decent amount, to contemporary standards of sensitivity, Blazing Saddles not only enlisted Richard Pryor as a screenwriter, but at least aspired to comment on the bigotry it depicts. Paws of Fury defangs that film's commentary and turns its R-rated ambitions into a reminder of exactly why there need to be more people of color involved in the creative decision-making on all projects, but especially ones like this. So again, pretty strong accusations of cultural and ethnic lack of cultural and ethnic sensitivity, to say the very least. Not great. I'll also have to double check Arc Productions here, because I don't think I'm familiar with their other work at all. So let's see what else they've done. But one other quote here. Paramount's limp animated remake actually triggers new stereotypes in the service of trying to expose racism for a preteen audience. The studio seems to have reached for legitimacy by bringing the venerated Brooks along for the bumpy ride, darkening both legacies. My goodness. I don't know if it's possible to have a less successful launch for your movie than, for one thing, the studio was already in trouble, got rid of it for a song. Critics have nothing positive to say about it outside of a few comments here and there of just like, things happen, like it is a movie and maybe kids will be okay with that. That's about it, I guess. And on top of that, yeah, some pretty serious accusations here of not only just bad writing, production, animation in general, but like culturally insensitive stuff. Like actively negative. Purple asks, how much money did it make? Has it said anything here? Here, I'll open my other research window real quick and we'll check Box Office Mojo to get a sense of what is it even. I already forgot the title. Paws of Fury, and then there's a subtitle that we don't need. Okay. Paws, Fury, Box Office Mojo. Let's see what we got. Oh, no. Oh, my goodness. Well, actually, from a certain angle, okay. The opening weekend here in the U.S., it earned about $6.3 million. So that on its own, terrible for a wide release animated feature to begin with in this day and age. So there's that. But according to Box Office Mojo, worldwide, so both domestic and international takes thus far, after what, like just a couple weeks, I guess, of release. Yeah, it released on July 15th, so it's been a week. It's a total gross of about $9.9 million. So we can easily see it getting over the $10 million mark, which means that, like, in theory, the people who threw in money would break even. But at the same time, we also have to consider marketing budgets. We know that they bought the movie for next to nothing, but we don't know how much they spent on marketing. Maybe it was just a few million. I would have to say it would be close to another $10 million just to market the thing, to even get close to modern marketing standards for this kind of movie. So if that's the case, maybe they won't actually break even, despite the fact that they spent next to nothing on acquiring the movie in the first place. That's pretty bad. Like, we talk about disaster animated movies and stuff that are just horrible flops. That is really bad. Like, we might be scraping the bottom of the barrel in terms of just how poorly a movie can perform. Specifically one that's supposed to be a big family movie, released in the middle of summer. Kids aren't even in school right now. Even that low bar hasn't been met so far. That's, wow. That's quite interesting. Okay. This is a great image, by the way. Arc Productions declares... Oh, sorry, this is what I opened. I want to learn more about Arc Productions, which is the company that originally created Paws of Fury and, yeah, went bankrupt and went into real trouble. Arc was in production on Blazing Samurai. That's the one we just read about. But what else do they do? The studio was known as Stars Animation until 2011. And under that banner had animated Romeo and Juliet 9. I actually like 9 quite a bit. And The Pirates Who Don't Do Anything. Oh, okay. And they've been awarded tens of millions of dollars in Canadian taxpayer dollars to operate. I love that image. That'll be my new PC wallpaper. Wow. Wow. My goodness. Okay. So, yeah, maybe this is actually worth a video. Just the level of failure here. And I don't want to sound too harsh, but my goodness. And okay, I mean, like I said, 9, that's a neat movie, has a very interesting look to it. Pirates Who Don't Do Anything, I loved that when that was released. I was a pretty big VeggieTales fan. That's a fun movie, and visually it's A-okay. Romeo and Juliet is pretty trashy, I think we all know that. But if that was their most recent franchise or series prior to Paws of Fury, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And we don't even know, where was the money going? Did these other movies make money? Okay, now I have to do some digging. Hold on, everybody. We're going down a rabbit hole here. I'm going to go back onto Box Office Mojo and check some of these other movies that they mentioned they produced. Romeo and Juliet. Okay, that's a 2011 release. Let's see what they got. Okay, so... I wish they had published the budget here too, but I'm not seeing a budget. Romeo and Juliet from 2011, worldwide gross of 193 million, approximately. Without the budget, we don't really know. But if they only spent close to the budget of this other movie, Paws of Fury, 50 million, 60 million, if it was in that range, even if we double the budget to cover marketing costs as well. They're close to breaking even. Maybe it's a loss. It really depends on how much they're spending for production budget and marketing budget. So, okay, not a runaway success. We'll say that. What's the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything? Let's check that out. Don't Do Anything. From 2008. Wow, that was a long time ago. Oh, wow. Okay, so Pirates Who Don't Do Anything... I don't know how wide a release it was. It doesn't list that either here on the website. But it was a worldwide gross of 13.2 million. That's not very good. That's not very good at all. And we would have to assume that... Oh, and also the international market, it just didn't happen. Less than $300,000. Purple says BRB. Don't worry about it. Okay, 13 million gross. I would have to assume the budget for that movie was at least 30 or 40 million. Yeah. Okay, so we're getting into the territory of other pretty blatant failures. I don't know under what law or program the studio was receiving money from the Canadian government. I don't know how that works at all. If you do know, please leave a comment, I guess. But, oh my goodness. Okay. So what's the other one they mentioned here? 9. Oh, it's going to be a hard one to search for, isn't it? No, it's not too bad. Okay, from 2009. So they were cranking them out pretty consistently here. That only had a worldwide gross of 48 million. So, okay, we're seeing a pattern. These are probably smaller scale projects in general. The budgets are probably not enormous, but they're just not performing. Does that come down to marketing? Apparently 9 in particular, the distributor was Focus Features, which at the time specialized in relatively small indie movies. I think they handled some of the Wes Anderson stuff, things like that. So, okay, is this trying to be art house animation reach where it was a limited release? Regardless, these were not successful movies in the conventional sense. Oh, also here it does list a budget for 9 as $30 million. So, again, double that for marketing. $60 million spent on the project, and they made close to $50 million. Uh-oh, that's a pretty significant loss. Okay, well, in that case, I guess the proof is in the pudding. This is no good. Oh no, there's more here. There's more here. What is this? The first sign that something was wrong was last Friday when employees were told they weren't being paid because of a glitch. According to CEO Tom Murray, the company has no money to pay its artists anymore. Oh my goodness. We are still working diligently to find a solution that will allow us to pay outstanding wages due to you. But in the event that wages are not paid and the receiver is appointed, there is a federal government program known as the Wager Earner Protection Program where employees... He said all this? Wow. Okay, so there's a government program that they can claim unpaid wages through, potentially. But it has a max payout of $3,900 per person. Oh my goodness. Oh no. Oh. This is borderline scandalous here. Okay, so again, and this is, this isn't even... Oh, this is not recent at all. This was years ago. They've been in bankruptcy for... What? Huh? When did Paws of Fury go into production? Hold on, we need more information. It was announced in 2014, so we can assume it was in pre-production 2014, 2015. Okay, so I guess this is just one that's been sitting on the shelf for that long? Oh my goodness. Well, I mean, we have to move on, but that's, that's really something. Okay. Well, very sad, very unfortunate for anybody who had previously worked for the company. Don't know what company leadership was doing. These projects just weren't performing as far as we can see. Really unfortunate, although the work itself, at least in terms of this flick, doesn't seem to be meeting any kind of high standards. Okay, what else do we have here? I think we had just a couple other things that I wanted to run through. Apparently, there is indeed a Gremlins animated program happening, which I feel like we've heard something about for quite a while now. And yeah, it's going to debut next year, and then on Cartoon Network. I assume this is a this was a Comic-Con announcement thing because it was reported very recently. And basically they announced the cast, which, yeah, an all-star lineup of Asian American actors. So is that based on the setting or something like that? Let's see if they have any more information for us. Oh, here we go. In Gremlins, Secrets of the Mogwai, we travel back to 1920s Shanghai to reveal the story of how 10-year-old Sam Wing met the young Mogwai called Gizmo, along with a teenage street thief named Ellie, or Elle. Sam and Gizmo take a journey through the Chinese countryside, encountering, sometimes battling, colorful monsters and spirits from Chinese folklore. On their quest to return Gizmo to his family and uncover a legendary treasure, they are pursued by a power-hungry industrialist and his growing army of evil gremlins. Huh. Amblin. Okay, Amblin had involvement, of course, with the original Gremlins movies. Warner Brothers Animation. Okay. Cartoon Network Studios, of course, right. Okay. That's about it. Is this, like, some key art? Is that what it's going to look like? Because I'm not crazy about that art direction. In general, I mean, I do think it's neat, I guess, that they're doing something with Gremlins, just because it feels like, I don't know, these days it feels like a somewhat forgotten franchise, even though it's probably not. Like, it has plenty of fans. A lot of people grew up with those movies. So, okay. I don't have any read right now on how it's going to turn out. I also don't think they mentioned any, like, creative directors or showrunners here, so don't have... Oh, well, a little bit here. Okay, we do have some names. Not familiar with them, so I guess we'll see. But, wow. That's that. Just wanted to quickly mention that one. Purple says, have you ever tried CSGO? No, I have not actually. I'm aware of it, of course. But no, I haven't. And is that one that's like exclusively online multiplayer stuff? Because that's one that I just don't tend to. That's a category of games that I don't tend to dip into too heavily. So that might be why I haven't looked into it at all. But is it one you've been into lately? You've been going into that one? Okay. What else we got? Yeah, and I think there's just like one or two more that I wanted to talk about quickly. I guess I've been streaming for a little while, so I'll go for just a little bit longer. But yeah, this was somewhat interesting, and it's not like a big giant industry thing. It's just something that's been going around the festivals lately. But there's a movie, basically a documentary, I guess, that's called My Old Schools, and as the headline says here, it's based around interviewing people, and they, share some of their memories from high school. And then they do accompanying animation. This is, of course, something that we've seen in a number of animated podcast type shows or movies, whatever. Flea, which was a documentary from last year, is basically the same premise, but just more serious in tone, and just focusing on one person's story. But here we are, and it's apparently going around the... it is getting a theatrical release, probably a limited release, starting today. So look at that, very timely. Let's read a little bit here. Directed by Jono McLeod and starring Alan Cumming, Claire Grogan, and Lulu, the film tells the story of a star student. Oh. Is it a documentary? Okay, the film tells the story of a star student at a posh Scottish school who is much more than he appears, related through a mix of live interviews, archival footage, and animation. Oh, McLeod described the 2D augmentation as a way to evoke high school life from 25 years ago. While drawing inspiration from MTV's 1990s high school icon Daria, the film also nods to the animation styles of the 70s. Cool. And then they gave him an exclusive clip here that I probably can't watch because I'll get tagged for copyright. Okay, so never mind. I thought it was many people's stories. I guess it's just one dude who I should probably know, and I've never heard of him before. There you go. Okay, but yeah, it sounds neat. It's an interesting idea. The art style, you can certainly see the 90s thing, and specifically if you're a fan of, Daria, it'll really click, I guess. But I'm interested to see. I'm also very happy to hear that it is getting a theatrical release. I'm sure I could find a theater showing it right now. So that's cool. Just something that I wanted to bring up. And who knows, if I do end up watching it, I'll probably make a video about it. So that's up. Just a couple more. Purple says, I've been playing Valorant. It's like Overwatch and CSGO together, basically. Oh yeah, I've definitely seen some clips of Valorant. But yeah, again, the online multiplayer stuff just isn't usually for me, so I haven't really gone there yet. Purple says, have you made a video on Fantastic Mr. Fox? No, I don't think I ever have. I'm sure that I've talked about it a handful of times. I mean, I love it. I think most people feel that way about that movie. It's just a lot of fun, and of course, as a predecessor to Isle of Dogs, that's another interesting angle to it, I guess. Yeah, I don't know, and it's tough in general when you want to try to talk about something that's been released a long time ago. You never know whether it's going to take off at all, because typically the stuff that gets significant amounts of views is stuff that is brand new, and people are interested in hearing about it and all that kind of thing. So, at least for the stuff that I do on the channel. So who knows? Could do a video on it sometime, but yeah, it's definitely one that I love. And then just one other real quick thing is that apparently, I'm sure it was greenlit a while ago, but this was my first time hearing about the fact that the Rugrats reboot on Paramount Plus has been okayed for a season 2. And they had a panel thing at Comic-Con, and gave a little bit of footage. And honestly, I do not know anybody who's into this show, period. I don't know how it's performing in terms of like younger viewers. I guess it would be hard to get numbers on that. You can't see the online reaction for younger viewers if they're not even online or making stuff about it. But I had the impression that it did very poorly. But again, with the streaming exclusive, it's hard to tell because how is success defined for these kinds of shows, and what kinds of numbers or standards does it have to continue to meet to have more seasons greenlit. So somewhat interesting that it's still going, and I guess that means I probably have to give it a shot, right? I think I've maybe watched 1 or 2 episodes, but I'll have to actually watch this one at some point. But the fact that it's continuing on is a little bit baffling to me. But anyway, I think that's probably about it for the new stuff that I wanted to cover today. And please, as this is something that's, still very new for the channel here, and specifically for the streams, absolutely let me know if this is something that you care about. Does it seem like a good idea? Is it interesting? Is there a different time that I should stream where, more people would want to get involved? Go ahead and let me know. And regardless of whether I keep doing the new stuff, I'm sure that I will keep doing regular streams, or I just do all kinds of other things as well. So, yeah, but I guess that brings us to the close for today's stream. I hope that anybody who came out for it live enjoyed it. Thank you to anybody who came out for the stream live. Also, thank you to anybody watching the archive version of the stream later on. Always very much appreciated. And just in terms of what's happening on the channel, as I mentioned way back at the beginning, always working on other videos. I have one coming up where I want to tackle just like the subscription model in relation to entertainment in a sort of broad and abstract sense. So hopefully that'll be done relatively soon. I had one go up on a video go up on Cloud Gardens the other day. And yeah, I'm sure I will continue to do reviews of new shows and movies also. But I think that's just about it. We're good to go. Can I finish this drink? Nah, there's too much left. Oh, it's getting warm too. That's not good. Cool. All right. Well, gosh, thanks to everybody once again, and I hope that you all have a very nice weekend. But yeah, that's all for now. Thanks for stopping by.